Hey guys, I'm ShyRanger. Well, with the 25th anniversary of Power Rangers, I thought it'd be fun to do a video ranking all the seasons and say a few quick words about each one. Generally, I don't really hate many of the seasons, and I like to look at the positives in each one. But there have been a few exceptions, which is where we'll start with number 21, Samurai and Super Samurai. Remember how exciting it was originally when Saban bought the show back? Power Rangers was saved, we would have a new season. But all that went away once Samurai was on. And of course we got the third episode first. And yeah, just translated Shinkenger with some pretty bad acting. But it wasn't entirely terrible. I thought it had kind of a strong finish, but that was mostly because of Shinkenger. And The Strange Case of the Munchies was one of the best episodes during the 4 years with Jonathan Zakor. He Ain't Heavy Metal, He's My Brother was pretty good as well. But just the acting, dumbing down Bulk, and the way Samurai was handled makes me have to call it the worst season of all time. Now, not far behind, number 20, Megaforce and Super Megaforce, which in some regards was kind of worse than Samurai. I mean, just trying so hard to mimic Mighty Morphin with Gosei Tensu and the Cave Command Center. You know, Troy having visions of the legendary battle, but never really doing anything with the character. But I've got to give Megaforce the edge a little bit. Some of the episode plots were better, I thought. And Gia did become one of my favorite Yellow Rangers ever. And she never even got a real focus episode. Plus, the Armada arriving at the end of the first half was a pretty awesome cliffhanger. But that's about the only thing Megaforce really got right. The hybrid powers, introducing suits that had never been seen in Power Rangers before. I mean, I did like that we had the cameos outside of Legendary Battle, but the Megaforce Rangers paying tribute by morphing into the different teams could have been handled a lot better. Finishing up the last of the bad, number 19, Ninja Steel and Super Ninja Steel, which is just right there with Megaforce and Samurai, whereas those pretty directly translated the Sentai. Ninja Steel has a lot more of its own original footage, which I enjoy seeing, but just the way Chip has been doing the show, especially with all the potty humor and fart jokes that it turns out was coming directly from Saban. And I mean, just look at Marv on Hyperforce compared to Preston on Ninja Steel, both played by Peter Sudarso. I did like the reveal of Levi being Aiden and having Madame Odious as the big bad this year. And Grave Robber was pretty much the best Halloween episode of the past several years. I just wish Kelson Henderson had been a Red Ranger in a much better season. I would say the super half has been slightly better, and I did enjoy what I like to refer to as Forever Tommy. Of course, Dimensions in Danger, the first decent anniversary episode in over 10 years. But Ninja Steel has had some of the worst school filler plots of all time. And just, the way they drive home the lesson of the episode, oftentimes a little too hard. Though I would say the Valentine's Day episode, Love Stings, definitely the best school plot Ninja Steel will ever do. Now I'm gonna have to give number 18 to Jungle Fury, which I liked. It's just, by the time I rank everything, that's where it ends up. And I mean, I would say it was the worst Disney season, but that's not really saying much, considering the entire Disney era was better than the Neo-Saban era, pretty much, at this point. And I'd say, as much as I enjoyed the martial arts and kung fu theme of the season, a lot of the episodes were overall kind of weaker and maybe weren't as strong as the other Kegelish seasons, but still had some good characters. I liked having RJ as a mentor. Loved that they gave us the Spirit Rangers and how they used the furry suits from Geki Ranger at the very end of the season. I always thought Now the Final Fury was a very solid finale, which at the time that it aired, I credited to Bruce Kalish not returning to the show following the writer's strike, or at least it seemed that way. Onwards to number 17, Turbo, which was a weird season that, tried a bunch of different things. Bulk and Skull are chimps. The Rangers are shrunk. Divatox sends a lot of detonators. And then you have the cast changes, the writer shakeup, Justin, and a handful of weak focus episodes about him. But there were some pretty good episodes as well, thanks to Car Ranger. You had the cars with minds of their own, Lightning Cruiser and Storm Blaster, the Rangers getting baked into a giant pizza, Turbo Megazord getting kidnapped, and Phantom Ranger, who I thought was a nice change of pace for the show, and I enjoyed the relationship there with Cassie, and one of the greatest finales and moments out of all of Power Rangers, Chase into Space. Next up, the season I once considered the worst of all time, and I'm sure some of you probably still do, number 16, Operation Overdrive. I appreciate it a lot more today because it has something current Power Rangers doesn't have: heart. And especially knowing that they really wanted to do Indiana Jones, but couldn't because of budget restraints. I'm watching it again thinking they did the best they could. And I mean, I enjoy how they adapted the Bokenger footage. And I kind of made me realize more now just how much of a good Red Ranger Mac was. Making him a robot was pretty creative, and while I couldn't stand Hartford, I'm just glad Spencer was there with some great quips and one-liners. So how things have changed. We've had way worse seasons now than Overdrive, and I can appreciate the heart these Kalish seasons had a lot more today than when they originally aired. Moving on to a season that is really two halves. Number 15, SPD. It started out strong and had a lot of pretty good episodes. Some of the best of the entire Kalish era, I thought. But, yeah, they kind of started to trail off, with the poor character development, the Rangers acting like they never learned anything, and plot points coming up that should have been long resolved. Plus, Sam the Omega Ranger not having an actor, and they couldn't just do one good team-up episode with Dino Thunder history. They did Wormhole as well, which was a bad episode. So, SPD, if it had stayed consistent like it was for about the first half, I'm sure it would be a couple slots higher here. But can't give it too much credit with how it went later on. Number 14, another season I appreciate a lot more today. Mystic Force. Pretty much my favorite story out of all the Kalish seasons. And like Super Megaforce using Gokaiger, I loved seeing the ShyRanger footage here. But the season did have its share of problems. The cast wasn't as likable, and Nick especially, one of the worst Red Rangers of all time. Though I would say Chip was cool, and Plan Zanda was great. I also liked John Toohey coming back for another season, even though he pretty much was a human version of Kruger. And then you had Mystic Fate, the worst finale of the Disney era. Just that final battle with the Master. Ridiculous. I just wish we could have that combo of Kelson Henderson and Barney Duncan again, which I kind of feel like would make current Power Rangers automatically better. But we'll probably never know. Now, number 13, what started it all, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1. As we all know, you had some great episodes in Green with Evil and Doomsday, and then a lot of pretty cheap filler. Also, I always thought Crystal of Nightmares and Switching Places were two of the best early on fillers Power Rangers has had. Moving on to number 12, Dino Charge and Dino Super Charge, which for the most part was a huge sigh of relief. Chip Lynn and his partner Jeffrey Newman did a great job turning things around. I liked getting back to a 2-episode premiere to really get things set up than to just have everything all set and ready to go in the first episode. And of course, it was great being back to some good character development, and I thought they did a good job with the various backstories for all of the Rangers. I especially liked Ivan's debut as Gold Ranger and thought it was one of the best 6th Ranger storylines since Kruger as ShyRanger in SPD and Taizan as Mercury Ranger in Overdrive, both of which I thought were pretty good as well. But then Newman left, and there was a shift in the Super half, with Chip now on his own with the writers. I mean, I personally still liked it and thought they still did some fun episodes, but I know a lot of people were really put off. And yeah, that was a weird finale at the very end. And as much as I liked Heckle and his evil snide half, perhaps he was discovered a little too soon. So I'll pretty much call Dino Charge the middle of the rankings. It did mark the return to good Power Rangers, but definitely had some problems later on. Number 11, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 2. Not all that bad, aside from all the cast change drama and the ninja encounter, which never should have been 3 episodes. Of course, you had a great introduction to Lord Zed and the Thunderzords, and then you had Return of the Green Ranger and some good single-part episodes. Best Man for the Job, Blue Ranger Gone Bad. Absolutely loved When Is a Ranger Not a Ranger when I first saw it. And if there's one thing we learned, it's that Rocky just wants to have fun. Number 10, Zeo, which I thought kind of started out slow with a lot of early on fillers. But things really picked up with the Gold Ranger story arc. Still probably my favorite Six Ranger storyline of all time. Especially with that Go Gold Ranger theme. And, you know, it was a shame what happened with David Yost. But I always really liked that they brought back the Alien Rangers. Next up, a season that really took me several episodes to get used to. Number 9, Ninja Storm. You know, I didn't like it all that well at first, but I think once I really got used to it and the new formula of the show, I really got to like it. And there were some fun episodes. And I mean, things really got kind of screwy with all the villains towards the end, but overall it wasn't bad. And that was definitely one of the best finales, with Doug Sloan even going back and rewriting it for the fans. Number 8, Wild Force. Pretty much the end of the classic era of the show, and the final season that had that classic villain drama that I came to love over the years. You had Animus pretending to be Kite the Kid, and some overly dramatic, almost samurai-level acting, especially from Cole. But then you also had Cole in one of the greatest Red Ranger versus boss fights ever in the Master's Last Stand, as well as 3 great team-up episodes. So, despite some flaws, I gotta say, Wild Force was a pretty good season to commemorate the 10th anniversary and what marked the end of an era before heading off to New Zealand. Onwards to number 7, Lightspeed Rescue. You know, I wasn't really sure how well I would enjoy this season, being such a new direction for the show following In Space and Lost Galaxy. but things really picked up with Ryan the Titanium Ranger's debut, another classic Six Ranger storyline. And I got to really like what they did with the demons, with Diabolico becoming one of my favorite villains ever in show history. I loved his little cameo at the very end of the season. Next up, my favorite Mighty Morphin season, number 6, Season 3. Now, for most of the season, I was still mostly a casual viewer. In fact, I'm not even sure I saw some of the episodes like Ninja Quest until they were on ABC Family years later, which is when I recorded them. But everything changed when Rangers in Reverse aired. Suddenly, the Rangers are kids again, while Rita, Zed, Goldar, and Rito are huge. I mean, my teenage mind was just blown. And so I loved the Alien Rangers coming in with their insta-transforming Shogun Megazord and Battleborgs. And then they blow up the command center. I mean, at the time, I just could not believe it. And, it wasn't perfect. The Zeo quest itself wasn't really that great. And I've seen some episodes of Kaku Ranger, but I've never really been all that into it. Just mostly the morphed footage. I would say the Alien Ranger story arc is my favorite ever in Power Rangers history. So, yeah, Season 3. It took most of the season, but it's really when I became a fan of Power Rangers. Alright, now full-on classic era. Number 5, Time Force. A great, kind of dark direction to the season when it first started. Loved the cast, loved the character development, loved Rancic versus Frax later on, Eric's debut as Quantum Ranger, and I gotta say, Time Ranger was one of the first Sentais I watched that I really enjoyed. So, even though Time Force was really following it closer towards the end of the season, I didn't mind and still thought it was pretty cool overall at the end. And really, End of Time wasn't the finale of Time Force. Reinforcements from the Future was. Number 4. Now I know some of the fans would not rank this quite so high, but that's what's great about the fandom. We all have our different opinions and how much we liked each individual season. I personally loved Lost Galaxy, having another season set in space, and what I thought was a pretty good mix of the new and the old. As the Rangers embarked on the adventure aboard Terra Venture, you still had Bulk, Alpha, and the Megaship. And, I mean, some of the greatest episodes of all time. Do the 10th Power, The Power of Pink, greatest team-up ever, Journey's End, one of the best finales ever. And, of course, it did take them most of the season to finally do the Lost Galaxy storyline, but I thought it was pretty cool once they did. About the only thing I didn't like was I didn't particularly care for how long it took them to finally introduce Galaxy Megazord, and A Red Romance was easily the worst episode of the season. Just a bad episode. Also, I was just glad when Scorpius was killed off. Boy, he was ugly. Definitely one of my least favorite bosses the show has had. So for me, Lost Galaxy really helped write the book of classic Power Rangers. Plus, I've got to add, Gigaman is fun to watch just from how different it was from Lost Galaxy. So, right around the corner, where I consider the entire classic era began, number 3, In Space. A great season-long send-off of the first 6 years of the show. Really enjoyed Astronema and her struggle of good versus evil, and her relationships with Andros and Ecliptor, the search for Zordon and his ultimate sacrifice. Even the ShyRangers I thought were cool, even though it was mostly Megaranger footage. But the season still had a few missteps. Back when it aired, I hated Andros and the Stowaway and the Wasp with a Heart. Plus, I never cared too much for reusing the Malagor suit for Dark Spectre. I was just more excited about seeing all the old villains again and having Divatox and her lackeys still out running around. And when Countdown to Destruction ended, I remember sitting there thinking, the show is coming back, right? Because that was kind of a last episode, even though I pretty much knew we would be getting Lost Galaxy soon. And that day Part 2 aired was when I actually joined Alt Fan Power Rangers, the very beginning of my now nearly 20 years in the fandom. Alright, this is it. Only 2 to go. Number 2, Dino Thunder, which by no means was a perfect season. I mean, at the time, I loved having Jason David Frank come back, but as we all know, Tommy was stuck in suit for half the season, and maybe he should not have been combining Dino DNA with technology in the first place. But what really makes me place it at the top is it had some of my favorite character development of all time, especially Kira becoming my favorite Yellow Ranger ever in her singing career. I will forever adore A Star Is Torn and the Patiently music video they did in the episode. Plus you had Legacy of Power, Back in Black, Fighting Spirit, one of the few Anniversary Day presents Power Rangers has had. Evil Trent was fun to watch as well. And of course, Mesagog was awesome, and the heart and care Latham Gaines put into it was just excellent. Finally, number 1, if you're lucky, your ABC affiliate aired it, or if you're like me, you probably watched it online. It's RPM. Just great storylines, great characters, great character development, great everything. Some of the best meta humor ever. Eddie Gazillion did a great job while he was there. And of course it was unfortunate what happened and he had to leave. But Chip came in and did a pretty good job finishing up the season. So it'll be interesting to see if Beast Morphers is Chip's version of RPM. I have seen all of Go Busters and really liked it, so I do look forward to the footage being adapted. From what has come out so far, I like that we're getting back to a more traditional morph and potentially introducing Blaze as an evil ranger early on in the season looks promising. I'm sure it would make for a great story arc should Blaze and Roxy be evil rangers corrupted by Evox. But there's an awfully big hurdle to climb to get back anywhere near Classic Era level and kind of even first half Dino Charge level.